I just got back from holiday and had a bunch of good J-10 games from before I left, so I thought I'd edit them together and analyse them. I get a lot of down tiers recently since the F-14As got moved up to 12.7. So if you're flying something like the J-10, which for my money is the best 13.7 in the game, you can pick up these crazy high kill games every now and then. That said, you almost always need a bit of luck to go with that for the inevitable mistakes that you're probably going to make. I've mentioned in a previous video that I tend not to contest altitude as freely on the Pyrenees map. There's too much terrain and control height is too low relative to the ground. The players below you have an easy time dodging missiles and can sneak up on you through the valleys and put you in a really bad exposed position. So here at the start of this match, I'm bleeding off these early launches, notching and using the mountains to try and defeat them. So here I'm just trying to lob a missile over the terrain at this F-15 and duck back down to the terrain. I didn't notice the F-20 behind him or that this F-20 is who my missile killed shortly in the feed, and you'll soon see what my lack of situational awareness here results in. I'm turning around now as my friend who I was playing with at the time said he had seen someone behind us, so I'm just trying to make sure I don't get anyone on my tail. See how much speed I spent making these turns though, couple that with my heavy fuel and missile load as it's still near the start of the game, and then not noticing I hadn't taken out the F-15 from before, I've left myself in a pretty awful position as I come round the mountain and see him coming in. As we merge into this rate fight, I'll show you a screenshot from sensor view. Look at the speed difference between me and the F-15. I could feel this in game as well by how quickly he comes around the circle and catches my tail. I knew at this point he was going to have a shot here, and with the terrain and my airspeed there's not an awful lot I can do to dodge it. My bad awareness and speed management means I should have died here. As it is, I get lucky and he misses the shot. He overshoots and I reverse into a one circle fight, which should favour me at this point. Sure enough, if we go back into sensor view, look how much of that energy he's used, and now our speed is getting on neutral. Now in this position I'm massively favoured because I'm in a J-10 and he isn't. I pull the nose up and crit him, causing him to fly into the terrain. Following the dogfight, I tried to pick up some speed again, going towards this Gripen. After firing, I decided against trying for a notch should he fire back at me and decided to dive to multipath height. I didn't want to end up in a similar position with the F-15 with no energy, so I went aggressive rather than bleeding my energy going into notches. He uses the mountain to defeat my first launch, but when we trade missiles again, I'm keeping low and he isn't, so I pick up a simple second kill. I'm flying back in towards the centre of the map now, and I'm using my RWR and TWS to build up my awareness of where the enemy players are, and also take shots on people like this F-20 who are close and flying head on, before using the terrain myself to try and keep hidden. I follow this valley for a bit and then turn back in once they're distracted. My team has collapsed a bit now, probably because I was playing a bit passive, but I am in a good position now to swoop in on these three who are tunnel visioned on my teammate. I don't go fully defensive after I fire on the flanker. If I'm going to win this engagement, I need to be fast. I know I can defend late in the J-10, so I make a small risk and keep pushing. I'm out of PL-12, so I push in close to maximise my chance of kill with my PL-5 shots. Remember, at close range, these missiles don't pull as hard as a Magic 2 or an R-73, so I try and lead the shot a bit as well. Again, with the MiG-29, I push close so he can't flare it. I know he doesn't have R-73s because it's just a normal MiG-29, so no need to pre-flare here really. At this point I went back to rearm and refuel, so I'll skip ahead to when I was flying back in for the last guy on the enemy team. I've picked him up on TWS down low and I briefly take my first shot after pointing him out to my teammate. By the RWR and the kill feed, I know I'm dealing with a flanker, so I start going down low. R27s are a nightmare to notch, so I'd rather use multipath whilst we're in even flat terrain if I need to defend. Not much to talk about with the last kill. I fire and he doesn't really react much to the launch and I get an 8 kill game. Moving on to the second game now, where I'm on the small Afghanistan map. This one can be pretty chaotic, so it's very small and there's a lot of cover leading up to the merge at the start of the game. Whichever side I start from, I usually keep low and play around the mountain ridge. As you pop over the ridge, you have to be ready for sudden head-ons like this. I quickly fire a second time as I notice my first missile is after his. Stay aggressive here and use multipath if you can. After the kill, I'm taking some time before I turn in. I want to allow as many enemies as possible to reveal themselves to reduce chances of being caught off guard. I'll jump ahead shortly now to where I finally come up against this F-15 who's caught with my teammates. See how I hold my launch until he passes the friendlies? I want to minimise team kill risk at all times. Now I know most, if not all of them, are in the furball in the middle, so I stick to HMD from this point on to avoid giving RWR pings. This is always something I advise if you know where the enemies are already, because you want to remain as hidden as you possibly can. As I come around the mountain, I decide to stick low at this point, as it looks like I'm going to be outnumbered. If I try and notch at this point, I'll just end up too defensive with basically the whole enemy team on my tail. HMD's giving me issues here and I can't get a lock on that MiG-29, so I let him go for now. First of these F-14s is too low, so I don't waste a missile on him as he's just going to multipath it. The second F-14, however, has exposed himself and dies to my missile. Notice here how I don't turn back in and commit to a dogfight with either the F-14 or the MiG-29 at this point. You don't want to turn in too early and commit to anything because you'll just expose yourself to a third party situation. I hold my launch on the F-15 who isn't low enough to multipath. I fire late so he has no time to correct his position whilst I can happily fly straight, pre-flaring occasionally for a possible 9M launch. It looks like I've got a 2v1 now, so I turn in aggressively using my air brake so as not to let them chase my tail and try and get a decent merge. I pre-flare again and go for a head-on PL5 shot in the hopes that I can take out the F-14, but that doesn't work out. As I turn back around, the J-10's performance has got me in a nice position here. I wait for a good lock with my PL-12, but he manages to multipath it into the ground. He does look slow though, so I know I have some time to try and take out the MiG-29. As we merge, he turns way too early right in front of me. I miss an easy first shot, so I cut my burner and air brake again to make sure I keep my position and take him out. I'm pretty low speed now as I turn back into the F-14, so I keep my nose pointed down to maintain as much energy as I can to dodge his guns. Again, some amount of luck here as I reckon he should probably be hitting this shot. After we merge though, an F-14 has no chance against a J-10 and I pull him for an easy shot. Cutting ahead now to me taking off after I rearm and a flanker has got closer than I realised. I just about managed to take off and keep low with a few pre-flares for R-73s, launching as soon as I can. Not entirely sure what his plan was here, but I pick up number 7. As I fly towards the final F-14, I don't fire back when I get the RWR warnings for his launches, as I can see my missile won't go over the terrain ahead of me. Against Fuckles or Phoenixes, I often notch even if I'm multipathing. They do a lot of splash damage, so a close proximity multipath detonation is probably still going to get you killed. RWR clear now, so I turn back in. I know roughly where he was, and I spot him against the sky over the mountains. He drives the first missile into the terrain, but for some reason climbs after clearing it, allowing me to pick up another 8 kill game. Starting off in this game, I'm making sure I've defeated the flurry of 120s, Phoenixes and Fuckles, before pushing forward and trying to contest the people who are also at altitude. I'm just pushing into these two guys here now. I'm not firing on either of them yet because the aspect isn't really favourable. They're both kind of already close to a notch, so I don't really want to waste any missiles. It looks like the guy down low is possibly trying to RTB, so I switch my attention fully to the Mirage, who is close and at a similar altitude. I fire once I get close, but he is indeed paying attention and makes an easy notch. That's why I held fire for so long at the start, as I knew it would be an easy missile to defeat. I forced him to commit to me now, however. I have a nice top-down aspect, so I go for an IR launch which catches him off guard. Now I knew from the kill feed earlier that my team had collapsed at this point, so I opt to approach this game down low rather than climbing back up. When you're dealing with multiple launches, notching becomes very difficult and doesn't allow you to maintain an offensive posture, and often ends up getting you killed anyway, because you're just really delaying the inevitable when you're outnumbered like this. I sling off 3 PL-12s. Not all of these are good launches, but I need to trim the numbers as fast as possible and try and, move the odds better in my favour. The second kill I get lucky as my missile somehow doesn't hit the terrain and pulls back up to the F-14, who should have just kept low for longer. I turn into the F-16 now, using my air brake to get into a tighter turn for the shot. Immediately after I pick up the lock, I fire and I'm going into a preemptive notch and getting low again. The RWR has everything going on right now, so I need to stay low as much as I can. This F-14 fails to stay low and face plants straight into my last PL-12. Continuing my turn, I see a Mirage now. He doesn't appear to be pre-flaring, so I fire a late PL-5, parking it on his nose. As I dodge the F-14 from above, a teammate shows up, giving me a bit more time. I follow this F-14, hoping to isolate him. I feign a turn to bait him into recommitting, but don't manage to pull him for the shot when I get him to do so. He takes out my friendly, but makes the mistake of trying to turn back into me. I hold my nerve as he tries to avoid my guns and wait until the last second when he has nowhere to go. He appears to still be in fighting shape though as I switch my attention to the other F-14 and miss a shot. As we merge, I have to dodge shots from both of them and set up a crit which puts this guy into a flat spin. I have to dodge the final F-14's guns one more time, but once I've done that, it's game over for him versus a J-10, and that makes 8 kill game number 3. This last game is one of those games where everything just lines up perfectly for you. I've climbed up to my usual altitude on the left and run into no competition. As I move in towards the furball, most of their team is distracted and flying straight towards me down below. I flick between targets with my HMD and just sling off a bunch of PL-12s before notching and looking around for any missiles tracking me. After I take out the AV-8, it's time to get low. I can see I'm outnumbered again, so I abuse multipath and the questionable tree hitboxes. F-14 here isn't pre-flaring and eats ahead on PL-5. Now I'm in a surprisingly strong position even though it's a 4v1. I have the best airframe of all of us here, and this handy pillar, couple that with a friendly F-15 on its way providing a distraction, and I can just keep turning and take them out as they lose their energy in front of me. That's it for this one. I opted not to do too many freeze frames and heavy editing with text overlays in this one, as it was faster to put this together with voiceover only. I wanted to put something up quite quickly after I got back from holiday, so it was a bit faster to just do this with a voiceover and not go too hard on the editing. I'll probably move back to the style I did with the flanker for the next few videos, so focus on one plane with a mix of voiceover and freeze frames with overlays. I'll probably do one of the F-15E or the Su-34, maybe both when they come out after the patch drops. Before then I might play something like the AV-8, maybe the Tornado, and try and make a guide with something a bit more off meta. Yeah, so I hope you've enjoyed this one, and see you again soon.